faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally Talks Books. Hey there, all listeners of Sally Talks Books. I'm Guy Wenhal, the editor-in-chief. Uh, in many ancient costume dramas we watch, whether it's palace intrigues or martial arts vendettas, you'll notice there's often a poisoning scene. And when ancient people poisoned, they often used a poison. I don't even need to say the name, you all know it. It's the most famous poison in ancient times, crane's top red. Well, for example, if we watch palace dramas, when someone in the harem doesn't like another, they sneak crane's top red into that person's food. In the imperial court, if the emperor dislikes someone, he gives the disgraced minister a bowl of wine, and that wine might contain crane's top red. Even Panginlian used crane's top red to murder her husband, Wu Dolaine. So, whether in the imperial court or the martial arts world, crane's top red was the go-to poison for assassination. So, what exactly is crane's top red, this incredibly potent poison? Actually, it's pretty straightforward. The name crane's top red sounds fascinating and poetic. In fact, its common name everyone knows is arsenic. From a chemical perspective, it's called impure arsenic trioxide. Perhaps you'll ask, but arsenic is white. But why did the ancients call it crane's top red? That's because back then, red symbolized danger, but arsenic is white, like flour. To highlight its deadliness, they gave it a name with red, crane's top red. So, the so-called number one poison of ancient times, crane's top red, is actually what we modern people see as a chemical substance. Now, after knowing this, do you find it very interesting? So next Monday, we'll bring you a book that specifically interprets the world's most deadly poisons. The historical book is called Deadly Elements. The author of this book, Deadly Elements, is John Emsley, who once conducted chemical research and teaching at the University of London. Currently, he is also a resident science writer at the chemistry department of Cambridge University. In this book, Deadly Elements, the author will introduce the chemical properties of mercury, arsenic, antimony, lead, and thallium, these 5 elements. Moreover, he specifically and meticulously explores the roles these poisons played in history, from the deaths of Napoleon and Beethoven to the downfall of the Roman Empire. Oh, actually, behind these historical events, there are traces of these deadly elements. And with the help of the latest scientific technology, we can uncover historical truths that previous generations couldn't discover in these events. Last week, we recommended a book on how to help children manage time, which sparked a lot of discussion among parents in our Sally Talks Books community. Then, on Tuesday, we'll continue to recommend a parenting book called Teaching Children with Distraction Issues. I believe many parents have experienced this. Their child sits at the desk for a long time, but after a while, only finishes a few problems. They keep wanting to drink water, go out for snacks, or use the bathroom, just can't settle down to do homework. So, even though many kids seem to spend a lot of time and effort on studying, their results are actually quite average. Ultimately, this is because our children can't concentrate while studying and are always distracted. Then, of course, it's hard for them to digest and consolidate what they've learned. And so, how should parents help their children overcome this bad habit of distraction? Don't worry, next Tuesday, we'll recommend just such a book to help you solve this problem. The authors of this book are experts in child psychology, education. Among them, teacher Rui Kaigin is a national psychological supervisor with 20 years of experience, and she has deep practical and research insights into improving children's attention. Another author, Lin Ling, is also a child psychotherapist, specializing in interventions for children's behavioral issues and concentration. So, these 2 authors often deal with children who have attention issues. This book is the result of their 5 years of work, summarizing experiences and practical action plans from tens of thousands of cases. Personally, I think this book isn't just for kids, parents can read it too. Moreover, many adults in real life are often distracted and can't focus, so we can also gain some insights from it. Well, after talking about children, we'll also discuss Western philosophy. As we all know, ancient Greece is a very important birthplace of European civilization. Here, very great philosophers emerged, and among them, the most influential on later generations are the so-called three greats of ancient Greece, as our readers know: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. The relationship among these three: Socrates was Plato's teacher, and Plato was in turn Aristotle's teacher. So these three achieved the most brilliant intellectual accomplishments in ancient Greece. From the relationships among these three, we can also understand that if you want to fundamentally understand, ancient Greek philosophy, Socrates is someone you can't bypass. His status in Europe is comparable to Confucius's status in China. So he is revered as the sage of ancient Greek philosophy and the founder of Western philosophy. But what kind of person was Socrates exactly? And what profound impact did his thoughts have on later generations? On Wednesday, we'll answer these questions from the book Interpreting Socrates, written by Christopher Taylor, a researcher and philosophy lecturer at Oxford University. When we read these historical biography books, do you all, like me, have a question? What is the use of history? Is the history we see in books truly reconstructed and restored to truth by historians? Or is a large part of it likely fabricated? Then, next Thursday, we'll also recommend to you an Oxford history work called The Origin of History. Its author is Arnold, a history lecturer at the University of East Anglia in the UK. This book tells us about the relationship between humanity and history, and how history as a discipline has developed to today. Through a series of concrete cases, the author reveals to us the correct methods for researching and understanding history. Right. So, when we have doubts, what is the use of history beyond bringing enjoyment and serving as a tool for thinking? We can find a suitable answer in this book. For example, this book says that, when some dogmatists claim that this is the only course of action or that things have always been this way, history actually allows us to raise objections. It allows us to point out that there are always many courses of action, always many ways to exist. That is to say, history essentially provides us with the tools to refuse obedience. I don't know if we've ever thought about this idea before, but reading this book might give you a new perspective on history. And when on Friday, we'll also bring you another Oxford history read, written by Khalid Kozer, an expert on international migration issues. The book International Migration was written in 2010. At that time, the total number of international migrants worldwide had reached 200 million. Undoubtedly, such a large-scale population movement is enough to change everyone's life. Moreover, in many people's minds, international migration often comes with a series of problems, like the existence of illegal immigrants, which is a huge shock to sovereign nations' borders. And the influx of large numbers of immigrants can create new social groups and conflicts among different people and races. So over time, migration issues become increasingly sensitive and more likely to spark debates. So this book discusses three key points. First, what is international migration? Second, what impacts does international migration have on the world? Third, the trends in international migration tell us about the various problems it brings. On Saturday, we'll recommend a literary classic masterpiece called White Noise. The author DeLillo is one of the most acclaimed contemporary American writers and a hot candidate for the Nobel Prize in Literature. A big name in American literary circles, Harvard professor Harold Bloom once said there are four most outstanding contemporary American novelists: and one is the DeLillo we're introducing today. And White Noise is DeLillo's most important and representative work. This book was published in 1985 and won the National Book Award the following year. This book mentions a series of environmental disasters. An industrial civilization is like a prophecy for the 21st century, precise and direct. The protagonist is a typical American middle-class person, living quite well, but often afraid of death, as if seeing death's shadow everywhere. Therefore, this book also has another name, The American Book of Death. So, what kind of story does this so-called Book of Death actually tell? Why are the well-off American middle class so afraid of death? We're back to the novel's title, White Noise. What's the meaning behind these three words? If you're interested, join us in looking forward to this book's interpretation on Saturday. All right, that's all for next week's book previews. If you have any favorite books you'd like us to cover, feel free to share them in the comments below. Maybe next time, we'll recommend the book you suggest to us. And all friends who love reading can join our Sally Talks Books. In the official Sally Talks Books community, there are various occasional perks and activities for everyone. Thank you all